I know. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, LinkedIn. Good morning, everyone. And good morning, Reena.
Good
Reena
morning.
Friedman Watts. You
Yes.
are seriously the Miss and Mrs. of unconventionality. And I am so happy that you're here because you and I kind of got to know each other in a very unconventional way, which is another story for another day. Very hilarious. But the reason why I really wanted to have you on the show is because what you have done in your career is what not only so many other people need to understand and find out, because most of us have been taught to do very conventional things to land what we believe is a dream job, or get on that kind of career path and climb the ladder. And there are also folks like you who came at it from a completely different perspective, equally, if not more successful, from doing things that most people may not have ever thought about. And so I really, really wanted to invite you on. Hi, Michelle. It's so good to see you. Michelle is such a wonderful supporter. But I
Aw.
wanted to have you on because, again, there are certain industries, specifically, I would say fashion, entertainment, that don't play by conventional rules, right? And please, would you do us the honors of introducing yourself so people get a quick snapshot of not only who you are today, but also some background in terms of where your scrappy, rappy, like mojo moving womanhood came from and how this all came to pass.
Oh my God, I love that intro. That is so good. Thank you for that energy at this bright early
I know.
hour. Oh my gosh, after the time change. So, my name is Reena Friedman Watts. I'm the host of the Better Call Daddy Show, which is a podcast that I dreamed up with my dad. That actually idea stemmed from me working on the Jerry Springer show. That was my first job out of college, and I loved booking wild and crazy stories. And I was like, who better than to give the final thought than my dad? He is my number one cheerleader, my biggest fan. He's always who I call for advice. And I was like, we don't have to end on a crazy note. Like, my dad can weigh in with his wisdom from being an entrepreneur with his parents for 40 years. And I feel like this generation has really kind of thrown that generation away in some ways. Like, we all live far from our parents and we're all doing our own things, and who has time for their folks or their grand folks anymore? And so I wanted to bring that piece back in. I really felt like my dad gives me such great advice, and I wanted to share that with the world. So that is what I'm up to now. But yeah, I started off as an intern in the talk show industry, moved out to LA, worked in reality TV at the forefront of reality TV, really like during the Road Rules, Real World, VH1 days of unscripted television where we overshot TV for 12 hours to get a 1 hour segment. I worked all hours of the night to get my foot in the door. I mean, I worked on Nanny 911 for 3 seasons and literally scored that job with a one liner. I had applied to the post production producer for an entire year through the Producers Guild. I think I drove the guy completely mad, but he was like, dude, this chick doesn't give up. And then I was like, I don't know what more to say to this guy. So I sent him a one liner saying, well, Bill Clinton's no longer looking for interns. So this job sounds like fun. And literally, he was a Clinton fan, and that totally worked. And I interviewed with him pretty much the same night. And he was like, can you start working from 7 at night till 7 in the morning? And so I did that for an entire season. I didn't even know all of the elements of post production. Like, I didn't even know how to output a tape, but I was like, I will figure out where I'm needed. This guy's seasoned. He's been working in the industry for 30 years. He basically gave me a list of deliverables and was like, call me if you need me.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to just like crack this open just a tiny bit because there are some elements here that I really want you to highlight. First of all, let's just face it. You said it yourself. You didn't have a lot of experience, right? But what you did have was what we in the world of Judaism and slang say is like chutzpah, which
Big
is you had
time.
some nerve, man. You had some nerve and a really, really, a really strong set, right? And you brought those to the table. And where does that come from? Because I mean, I think that, a lot of people, when they're, especially in the job search, they think that when they get that position, then they'll have the confidence. Like somehow the title or the company accolades or the prestige of this, organization is going to actually make them feel more confident. But in your case, it came the other way around. So can you talk a little bit about how that came, and what was that driver that gave you the fearlessness or the balls to actually go and say, like I'm doing this.
I actually really love that you brought that question up because I was talking about that last night with my dad. Confidence doesn't have to come from someone else. Confidence doesn't have to be with you all the time. Confidence can come in building it along the way. Like the more you build, the more you refine, the more you do it, the confidence comes there. And you question that confidence too. Like you can have confident moments, but not always be confident. I'm not always confident. Let me tell you, when I was interviewing Jerry Springer recently, my confidence definitely came into question again. Like I've interviewed over 200 people. Like I know I'm getting good at it. But when you interview somebody of a different caliber or somebody who's been on the air for 27 years and one of the longest running talk show hosts in history and somebody who you have a lot of respect for, when you push yourself to new heights, your confidence is in question. All you can do to get confident is to continually work on it,
Right.
continually build, continually practice, continually hone. So that is what I was aiming for,
So
you
I'm going to
know?
summarize this. I'm going to insert some of my of my ism to it, which I always say is confidence is a muscle, right? It needs a lot of exercise, and when it doesn't get exercised, it's easy for it to atrophy. When it gets
Mm-hmm.
some regular workouts, of course, it innately builds on itself. And so when you do something that's super scary and then you do it again, it's like the first time you did it, it's less scary than it was the time that you're doing it now. And I think that as you have shared, it wanes, it waxes and it wanes, it goes up and down. And I too know that. I don't, people sometimes say, oh, Lauren, you have so much energy. It's like, I just came off of 3 days of being kind of sick post vacation. I wasn't feeling so energetic, but it waxes and it wanes, and we need to kind of nurture that and know that, because it will come back. Like I think we sometimes think, oh, I lost my confidence and it's gone. Like it's never coming back. You didn't lose it. It's just kind of taking a break.
Yeah, and there's always something great around the corner. There's always opportunities around the corner, and I have found that time and time again. Gosh, there are disappointments, but you also are like one opportunity away from something amazing. Like, I never would have thought a year and a half ago, me coming up with this silly little show idea with my dad, that I would have now interviewed some of the people that I've gotten to speak to.
I love that, and thank you, Narashima. Yes, it's definitely, it builds and it regains with confidence. So keep doing that confidence workout, because it does pay off, and it's easy to forget that when you're not feeling so confident, right? When you're feeling confident, you're like, it's a piece of cake. I'm having a great hair day and everything is perfect, right? I mean, it just kind of one of those mindset things that I think kind of messes, I know, with me anyway. I want to jump into some of our questions, because as we were talking pre-show, right? There are structured approaches to landing an ideal career move, and there's no shortage of leaders out there, including myself, that share their point of view on this. And then there are those just like you who are really successful with these unconventional strategies. And for those who want to break in and evolve in either atypical industries or even in more traditional industries, what would you say might be kind of the the most, the three most important kind of action steps that you should keep in mind. If you just, like, even two or three in your job search, what can you as a candidate or somebody, who is in the idea or in the process of thinking, I want to make a career move, what is an unconventional strategy that you would recommend?
So I know that this may not sound unconventional, but it is, and it goes alongside networking. But if you're interviewing in an area, like maybe in a new location, and you know somebody else in that location, you can just say, hey, I'm entertaining this city, and just let them know what you're up to. And then you never know what that can turn into. Like I recently did that for someone. I'm like, hey, you know, I know this person who's interviewing there. And he was like, oh, wait, I know I know a hiring manager there for the last 5 to 7 years who I love. Give me 72 hours. Like that person is totally employable. Or like I have a friend that I went to high school with and he just jumped ship and I've been keeping in touch with him for 20 years. And now he's, the head of HR at a new company. And I was like, I let somebody know, I was like, hey, if you want to work at the last company that he was just at or the new company that he is at now, like he still has relationships with where he just was and he has relationships where he's now going. So the time is now while he's getting into this new database and while he's still like good with the other place to hit up both of those locations, you know? So
Right.
pay
So
attention to where
it
people are.
doesn't sound that unconventional, but most people don't necessarily take that risk, right? To put themselves out there to find somebody somewhere and activate a little vulnerability and say, hey, you know what? I'm coming in from a new city and I'm looking at this job. I do you know anybody at so and so and so and so and so and so, and then actually connect those dots and then take the action and go and make a call and maybe have coffee with them. And I don't love this expression, but I think pick your brain. I just think it sounds icky. But I think the idea of probing and asking some really, really thoughtful questions is so helpful. And how has that strategy worked for you?
I mean, I just did that yesterday for someone. I was like, hey, like I noticed that you just switched companies. Congrats on the new role. So crazy. Like you were there 20 years ago. Now you're back there. Like literally he
I see.
started
Okay.
his career at Qualcomm and now he's done a bunch of different things in between and ended up back at Qualcomm. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I was like, it's as crazy as me interviewing Jerry Springer 20 years ago and now re-interviewing him 20 years later. I was like, I'd love to hear about what happened at Coinbase and now what's going to happen at Qualcomm and what are your relationships like with both places. And, I might know some people for you. Like that's what that conversation went like. And it wasn't even for me,
Right.
but
It
it was like,
wasn't
who do I
for you.
know that I can give him? Because he's the head of
Awesome,
HR now.
even better, right? No
Yeah,
ulterior motive, right? How can you
totally.
serve? How
Just to
can
catch
you
up.
help?
I knew him from high school. He's in a position of power. Who can I help him find?
Amazing, right? And of course, this goes back to reactivating your network, staying in touch with people. You just
Exactly. Just
never,
knowing what
never,
people are
never
up
know.
to. Yes, and what's so crazy too is like when he lived in Chicago, like he was working at Groupon, and I used to go to lunch and learns in the building, and he didn't even go to the lunch and learns. They were like these internal, sometimes they talk about tech things, sometimes they talk about non-tech things, free lunch and then networking. And I loved the speeches, and I worked at a company close by, and so it was fun. A bunch of hipsters doing this during lunch, and he would come over after the lunch, say hi to me. We had, caught up since high school. And yeah, it's just staying in touch with people that have come in your path that are in positions of power. You don't know whether they know podcasters, you don't know whether they could help someone get a job, whether you could grab coffee. If you all like each other, build each other up.
And I especially love this because, again, the act of getting others to talk about themselves makes that relationship a lot easier. You're going in it with a level of curiosity and saying,
Yeah.
hey, tell me about how you came to come back to Qualcomm and walk me through your journey. And usually people are uber responsive to that. Who
Yeah.
isn't excited about somebody being interested in them? And that's a really, it's kind of like a 101. But again, most people who are networking often, and maybe even too often, have an agenda of what they want out of the conversation. In this case, you are a living proof example of what you were there to do to help him be more successful. How can I
Totally.
connect you? And that is maybe unconventional in just the way that the paradigm is shifting. You weren't going into it with snooping around looking for how you could benefit.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's like, who can I
Awesome.
connect you to and who can I send your way? And, what type of people are you looking for? And that was literally it. I'd love to catch up. And another
Right.
thing,
Yeah,
I don't know
please.
if it applies exactly to the job search, but like last night, I had heard this guy on a LinkedIn audio and I loved the way that he spoke. He talked all about branding and the way that you deliver your message and being comfortable in your own skin. And I was blown away by him. And I listened to him a couple times on LinkedIn audio and I connected with him. And before the interview, I couldn't find any other podcasts that he had ever been on. So here's what I did. I connected with everybody who had written him a LinkedIn recommendation. I connected with the other people who were in the LinkedIn audio room. And I only did this like an hour before my interview with them. And I just said to them, hey, like, I see that you're connected to Chris Ward. Is there anything you'd ever like to ask him that you haven't? And let me tell you, in a half hour's time, I had 5 questions to lead with. And they
Oh,
knew him
wow.
better than me. And
Awesome.
and
So
the
this is
language,
your unconventional tip, okay? And the unconventional tip here is use the LinkedIn recommendations, right? And
yes.
have those people provide you with intel because you haven't been where they have.
Yep. They
And
know
like
that
you said,
person better than you do.
better. I love that. And I think that is also, it actually is a really smart way for job seekers to be able to get that intel, because while those recommendations are obviously positive, right? Like nobody's like, he's a real jerk. It is also an opportunity to ask the other question, what else should I know? Right.
Yes.
And that's not
Exactly.
leading them into like to trash the person, because they're probably not going to anyway, especially if they put a recommendation there. But also you can find out other things. Oh, this person is a really hands-on manager. Oh, this person, is a wonderful leader, and they're still growing in their role. Some other pieces of intel. And I think that is an awesome, awesome, awesome tip. Sonia wants to know, Chris whom on LinkedIn podcast? You
His
said
name
Chris
is
Ward,
Chris
right?
Ward Jr. Oh, he is a
Oh, I
remarkable
love that. You
speaker.
see? Thank you, Sonia. Now you got a new tip. So I really, really love this idea of perusing and then probing the LinkedIn recommendations. You see, Reena is one of those people that has, like, her middle name should be Reena Resourcefulness, because she is able to, on the fly, think about how to get it done. And sometimes I encourage job seekers to think like a bloodhound. Not that bloodhounds are very gentle, by the way. They're not like, I don't mean like you're out for blood, just clarifying. I mean that they follow a scent. They follow a scent until they get to the end of whatever that destination is, right? And you have a really good sniffer. You know how to sniff out a way that is working, and then a way that could also really serve both you and your audience. And I think that is a very important, and maybe not unconventional, but certainly an underutilized skill set. People are oftentimes very much by the book, right? I should do this, to check, when sometimes you need to really start using your brain and agility to start going, well, this didn't work. How could I re-engineer this idea? How could I get to this person? And so much of what you do is requiring that, because you are dealing with high visibility, high profile influencers, celebrities, this and that. That's actually how we met. I tried to weasel my way, and I scored a little resourcefulness, and I got to meet you. But the point is, tell us how us as job seekers or other people can get and build that visibility with high profile influencers. How do you get seen, and how do you do that with your clients?
I mean, I can just tell you that I have gotten the attention of Katie Couric on Instagram, who I very much love. And she's on my bucket list of people to interview, but she now follows me and has shared me in her story on Instagram multiple times. And here's a trick that I do that has worked multiple times to get other high profile people onto my show is that, I will watch people's Instagram lives in their entirety, and I will take multiple snapshots during the live of that person smiling, of them looking their best, of them saying something poignant. And I will take notes. I'm telling you, this is time consuming. If you really want to reach people and make them feel like you care about their message and them, it requires research. And so I will take 10 to 20 snapshots of them during a live, and I'll take notes of things that they say and things that they say multiple times, because if somebody says something multiple times, that is something that they care about. So yesterday I did this with Katie Couric. She was being interviewed by a journalist, and they were talking about Putin and the sanctions and, uniting our voice. So I took two things that they said during that, and one moment of them both smiling and looking their best. I put the question in the text. I @signed both of them. I shared it in my story. That shows that you're listening, that you're thoughtful, that you appreciate what they're talking about, that you're sharing it with your community. And let me tell you, you do that 2, 3, 4 times, they take notice.
Right. So I did not come up with this line. It came from Amy Volas, which came from, I believe it was, I can't remember her name. Something Rogers, Christine Rogers. I believe that's who it was. Show me you know me, right? Show me you know me is just a powerful way of eliciting that response that says, you're on to me. And then that spontaneous trade transfer comes in, which is, and I am open to finding out about you. So when you start with giving, and you've invested, as you have invested in research, taking notes, I actually have a great tool for you for that too. I'll share that with you offline. But the point is, you can use verbatims, right? You can use things that you've heard in podcasts. I don't want to save it. I'm going to put that in here. I use, I'm sure you know this, but it really is Otter.io. And this tool will allow you to, it's amazing. You can just let it run while you're listening to a podcast. I think it's Otter AI. I think
I haven't used it enough, but yeah, I have heard of it.
So you can put a podcast on, it will transcribe it, and then you'll be able to take those snapshots of those verbatims, and then you can use that in your emails for subject lines, right? When you're quoting somebody, the chances of them opening it, especially if it's exact, even if you put the timestamp on there, that is indisputable. You have invested in them, and they know. I remember when I loved it when you said blah, blah, blah at such and such a time, bam, 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 right? They know that you're not messing around.
Also,
it's not random. That specificity really helps to make it valid.
Alongside that, another trick is knowing your hashtags. So the other night, I went to a VIP event with my husband and took a picture with Jordan Peterson. And then just by using every hashtag that had his name in it, his daughter found me. Right. So then I watched her content and I saw her talking about her dad. And then I again took something verbatim from that video, at signed her, you know, daddies, girls unite, love our daddies, use your brain, something from what she said. And boom, put that immediately after she liked my post with her dad, shared her content, at signed her, got her attention again. So it is timing and it is
Oh my God,
hashtags and
I love this. So
yeah.
hashtags are also a way to not only reinforce that other person, their brand, their message, etc., but also, I would say, grossly underutilized, right? The way
Know the
that
hashtags
we use our
of the
own.
people you want to connect to too. You
Exactly.
look at their content, see the ones they're constantly using, and if you want to be seen by them, know theirs.
That's right. That's right. So lots of shout outs. Hi, Claire Davis. Great tool. We were talking about Otter AI. Thank you for that link. I appreciate the support while I'm talking and texting and all that good stuff. And Otter is life changing. It transcribes really, really well. You can also hear the tonality when you play it back of the person. So it doesn't just transcribe it, it actually records their voice. And so this also can kind of like tell you when you're re-listening where the high points and high vocal tonalities are and where the lower ones are, so that it really can enunciate some of the key takeaways. So this is a great tool for people. I also love it because you can do other things while you're doing it. So you don't have to like babysit while you're taking notes, and you can just go back. It'll highlight. This is like obviously a non-endorsed or paid advertisement for Otter AI.
Otter should be the
So,
new sponsor of Lauren's Lives.
so there's no question about this, Reena. I mean, you're a rainmaker, you're a connector and a community builder, and you're able to really do an amazing job of persuading and negotiating with celebrities. So tell us a little bit about how you are able to, and how we can also exercise some of that persuasion without being spammy or manipulative. How is it that you are able to do such a killer job at influencing people to not only come on your show, but also to build your audience of listeners, right? To keep them coming back. Because right now, what is Better Call Daddy? It's like the number one. Like, tell me where it lives on the
I'm in the
ranking.
top 2% right now, which is pretty exciting considering
Top
I haven't
2%.
done, yeah, I haven't done any paid advertising. It's all organic, which is amazing. Yeah. I will say that one thing that I've started to do and I feel like brings listeners back is, like I just mentioned earlier, reach out to your audience. I have a Facebook group with about 685 people in there, and I test topics there. I I ask my audience for feedback on different topics I'm considering covering. And if they have a lot of questions or interest around certain topics, then I know that's something that I should cover. Or if
So
I'm
you
going,
do some crowdsourcing off of
yes,
your Facebook group. And so if I were in the job search world, right? Well, I kind of am, but I'm not a candidate, right? How could job seekers use that crowdsourcing? I have one idea, but I'm curious what you think.
I mean, Facebook groups are great for engagement, and there's Facebook groups for everything now. I would look for Facebook groups around the different verticals that you want to be in.
It's
That's
interesting that
one
you say
idea.
Facebook groups. Are you a non-fan of LinkedIn groups, or are those not as powerful?
I haven't found them to be as engaged. I mean, I'm a part of many different podcasting groups where, you can either look for guests or find guests. I've found some great guests like that. I find honestly guests everywhere. Like I find guests off of Clubhouse. I find guests off of TikTok. I find guests off of YouTube. I find guests from reaching out to publicists. I find guests off of Twitter. I have found guests and connected with people on every platform. literally every platform. I just look at different platforms as different tools. Here's another thing that just happened is my grandfather, this is so funny. Like when your grandfather sends you a lead, you have to go after it because that happens so rarely.
Thanks,
So,
Pops.
so my grandfather yesterday sends me an email. It's like some historical Jewish society is like hosting some news anchor. And he was like, oh, maybe he'd be good for your podcast. So I was like, could you ask him if he'd be interested, Grandpa? Like, are you a part of putting together this event, you know? And he's like, no, but it was just a lead. I was like, okay, don't worry. I'll get to him, right? So I go on Twitter, I like type in the guy's name. Of course, he's, you know, verified and hard to reach. And then I go on LinkedIn, type in the name, see if he's on LinkedIn. I'm like, where can I get a hold of this guy easiest, right? On Twitter, he's got 100,000 followers, so that's going to be harder. On LinkedIn, not as many followers, so that might be a good place to start, right? But when I typed in his name on LinkedIn, his podcast producer was on LinkedIn. So I was like, all right, I'm going to reach out to his podcast producer and I'll just be like, hey, my grandfather never sends me leads for my podcast. This was the first time, and it was your guy. We should connect. Literally, that was my message. He connected the same night. Right. That is a unique message. It's funny.
It's so funny.
It's true.
Yes.
I'm sure no one's ever said it. It stands out, and it was harmless, right?
I love this. Yes, thanks, Grandpa. Never discount a lead. Hi, Erica. So what this is all kind of pointing to is eyes and ears open, right?
All the time.
Keep looking. The clues are there. David Breyer always says so many things are hiding in plain sight. I mean, obviously he didn't make that up, but the point is that there's a lot of fodder, a lot of information that is available. Keep thinking, you know, outside of what is immediately in front of you. You know, in this conversation, in this half an hour, we've identified, you have shared all these different streams of resources that are just free and available. People and their connections. Facebook, which is feeding, you know, one area of connections and crowdsourcing. You know, so many other, LinkedIn, of course, you know, you're using that. Podcasting. There is so much, and I would just want to make a shout out. This has been interview week with a lot of group members. That there is an unbelievable amount of information. I love going to your recommendations, right? And getting some feedback from those people that is available, that is so often people are, oh, I can't find them on LinkedIn. Okay. You know, I can't find them on LinkedIn. Surely they have a profile. Maybe there's another way of tackling this. Somebody else is a fourth degree connection, or somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. You know, you're gonna have to get a little scrappy, a little dirty, a little gritty in order to find some of the things that you're really looking for, assuming that you really want it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't care, you'll give up.
100%. I mean, even some of the hardest to reach people that I've had on my show, I started seeing who they've had on their podcast or who they're friends with that I might be able to reach before I reach them. That works. You know, have a couple of them on first.
And build that momentum and credibility.
Get in their circle. Get in their circle. If they've interviewed them and they like them, and then you interview them and do a good job, you can share that.
Right. Word of mouth spreads, right? You know that better than anybody. It's fast. Totally.
That works in the work world too.
Absolutely. 100%. So, Reena, I just want to offer this up to you. First of all, everybody, you've got to go check out Better Call Daddy. Not only is it hilarious and funny, Reena gets amazing guests. A couple of weeks ago, you're like, I got my dream guest. And that's who you are, right? You're always kind of moving that ball forward and connecting. And you're a gift. You're a gift to all of us because you show us, you know, how to do things that are potentially not that easy, but in a very kind of dogged and non-conventional way, in a very non-linear way. And I love that. I love that because there is no right or wrong. It's just about the results, right? At the end of the day, you get it done. And you're a mom of 4 kids, hustling and moving and shaking and doing it like literally nonstop. What are your kind of final words for us today and for the world of job seekers and other people who really are struggling with some of the conventionality around their search or even just in building connections?
Yeah, get crafty, really. Who are your biggest cheerleaders and know them? Reach out to them. The people that love you and will sing your praises. I say this time and time again. See what they're up to. The people who have seen you perform and the people that have seen you get Jerry Springer or work at Jerry Springer or know you from your career highs, reach out to them and see what they think to do.
So get crafty, right? And I'm going to say get crafty and scrappy, right? Because
And all of the
sometimes,
things that I do, other people could do too. Like, try some of these social media tricks, try Facebook groups, try tracking people down on multiple platforms, try listening to people's Instagram lives who you look up to. People give tips in every one of these lives. Get new
I
ideas.
never even thought of Instagram lives. Like that's
Oh,
that's
wow.
like I've been living under a rock, right? And I consider myself pretty resourceful, but I mean, there's always something more to learn and learn from people that are doing things that you haven't done before,
Yeah,
right?
you know, another great site, I don't know if you know about this site, but it's called Listen Notes. You can go on Listen Notes. It's like a podcast directory. You can search by subject matter. You can search by name. You can search by things that you are interested in. I literally go to Listen Notes all the time and I'm like, I want to learn about positive psychology. I want to learn about parenting. I want to learn. You can type in by name, by subject, by title. It's such a good database. And that's how I find some new podcasts and new people that I want to connect to, even
Oh,
because
I'm
it's
so on
so
this because,
searchable.
right, like I'm getting a lot of requests. You know, have you worked with people in, Web3? Are you like flush on NFTs and metaverse? And my
Yes.
answer is I'm learning it. I'm learning it, while I'm flying the plane because I have been playing in that area. But again, oh hey Shellen, it's these are all really important tools to keep experimenting. And you don't like it, move on. There's always
Yeah.
another one. But
Oh, yeah.
build your arsenal. Build a toolkit, so that you have these things on the ready. And you can only find out by trying. So don't be afraid. It's just a dipping of the toe in. You like it, great, keep going. If you don't, ask somebody else. What are you using? And then use that as a kind of conversation starter. I could listen and talk to you all for the rest of the day with coffee, of course. But that being said, I have to let you go because it's not fair. I know you've got a million other things to do, and also, I just want to thank everybody for joining today. Please don't forget to check out Reena on LinkedIn. Don't forget to check out Reena's podcast, Better Call Daddy, and connect with her because she is an incredible connector and also a magical resource. I know this firsthand, and that's why I brought her on the show so that you guys can all meet and greet this amazingly energetic and powerful woman. So thank you, Reena. Hang around for afterwards because I just need more. And
Aw.
thank you, LinkedIn, everyone. Always love to have you here. And very special guests coming up for the next 2 weeks. Don't wanna like give it all away, but I'm pretty stoked. So anyway,
That's
happy to be
amazing.
back and love you all. Thank you. Awesome, great. Thanks again. Thanks again, Michelle. Thanks, Erica. Thanks, Shalyn. Thanks, Nara. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Sonia. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.